Hello everyone, welcome to another one of the Foil Guy's How to Sculpt videos. Today, since we are going to be doing Bob Ross himself, I thought it would be appropriate to also add a little bit of parody to this situation and increase the entertainment value by also impersonating through the sculpture Bob Ross. So if you'd like to get started with me, let's start with the basics. First and foremost, when doing the basics, it's always important to know that the simple things in life are what matter. The more complicated things are a result of doing the simple and the basic over and over in the right place and in the right way. So if you can learn the basics, you can learn to do the complicated. Bob Ross may be a complicated sculpture, but we're going to make this easy and fun. So, starting with the basics, I want you to tear off a piece of foil just about the length of your arm, and then tear it again into 3 pieces. There, you'll know how to cut without scissors and organize your pieces like the little engineers that you are. There, it's that simple. And doing it again in thirds. Now, starting with the sculpture, obviously we want this to be a 3D piece. It doesn't have to be, but that's the way that we are going to be doing it today. If you would prefer to do it in a 2D shape, that is completely up to you, but we want to make sure that this is going to bless the most number of people. So, if you want to join along with me in making 3D shapes, first and foremost, this isn't a 3D shape yet. It's like a little caterpillar. It hasn't become a butterfly yet, but we're going to help it along by allowing our hand to be its cocoon. So what we're going to do is we're going to reach around the aluminum foil, take it entirely into our hands, and then grip it, but not crush it. We want to be gentle with our aluminum foil. This is a material that can bring us a lot of joy, but we have to treat it right. So when reaching the aluminum foil and gripping it into your hand, decide and use those muscles to, at a point, mold it into the image that you want it to be. Not flat, but enough to mold it from 2D to 3D. Now, we're going to treat this just like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. So join with me. Now notice that I'm not crushing all the way. I'm stopping at a particular point so that it makes the shape that it needs to be. And there we have it. We have a lovely little 3D shape from what used to be a 2D. Now, isn't that beautiful? Alright, now for the second aspect of this. When learning the basics, it's always important to note that sometimes we'll be using big tools like our hands, but other times we'll need to be a little bit more gentle, a little bit more hands-on, if you will, by using smaller pieces and putting in smaller details. Instead of molding the whole thing, just mold in little smiles and little rainbows and little happy things that we can use to make the sculpture even more of a blessing to those who are watching it. So what we are going to do here is we're going to mold this into a shape. It could be a square, it could be a triangle, it could be a rectangle, even a circle. What I want you to do is, instead of using your whole hand, I want you to pinch using these 3 or 4 fingers and just mold and roll over those lines so that it meets at the angles that we want it to be. As you can see there, I rolled over all the pieces that I'm not using because, well, the little aspects of the aluminum foil may not be out in the front. Every little piece is important because this is what makes the rest of it stronger. So, meeting at this angle, finishing up my little square, happy little square here. Four right angles, 4 equal sides. Doesn't have to be perfect, it can be a little lumpy. And again, if this is your first time practicing this medium, know that you don't have to be an expert the first time. As long as you're having fun and it looks right, in the end, the process can be messy, but the end result is what counts. This is what we want it to look like, simply through pinching and pressing, using the molding technique, but instead of with our whole hands, with 2 or 3 happy little fingers. So, continuing on from that point, we have our 3D shape, we have our 2D shape, but working in details. Now, we're going to learn how to reattach without using glue. We don't need to use tools. We have every single tool that we need right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tear this in half. Isn't it interesting how the harm that we oftentimes do is the harm that we do ourselves? But we also know that if there's anyone who's going to put the pieces back together, it also needs to be through our effort and our strength as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix the mistake that I made and turn it not into a mistake, but into something that can be much more stronger, having been repaired. I'm going to place them over each other just like this here and do what I just did with the pinching technique. And pinching these two pieces together, now the two become one. Now it doesn't look quite right, at least not to me. Now if it looks okay to you, then that means that it's perfect. What I want you all to do is make sure that it looks right, exactly the way that you want it to. Smooth it out and realize that as you are doing this, it's going to become whole again. Now that looks just like the way it started, wasn't it? So mission accomplished. We have molding, we have pinching, and we have reassembling. This is all that you need to be able to do any foil sculpture that you can think of. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sculpt Bob Ross. And Bob Ross, as we know, is a man, and he has a gift in painting, as well as in effective communication as he's going through these painting projects. So what we're going to do is we're going to, just like aluminum foil is, recycle some of these pieces. I'm going to use our reattached piece to serve a brand new purpose, make him another little leg. I'm going to reattach him to this other leg here, so now that we have Bob Ross's legs. If he has 2 legs, that's going to be ideal, but if you want him to have 3 or 4 legs, you want him to be a sci-fi Bob Ross, that's perfectly fine. But what we're going to do today is we're just going to stick to the picture and let you all be creative as well. I'm going to do the same thing we did with reattaching. I'm going to recycle as many pieces before I use any others. So that way we can not only be efficient, we can be a little more effective in how we're using these things. Make sure that we know that there's never any pieces that are going to be discarded. They all serve a purpose. Now, what I'm going to do here is I want there to be room for arms, but I don't have quite enough yet. But before I tear off any others, I want them to get ready for their journey and being a part of this sculpture. So I'm going to tear off individual pieces, but not all the way. Just cause little rips. And this way, we'll be able to attach them later on. I'm going to mold these together. Make almost what you could say is a little stick figure, a little scarecrow. Just like when we all started painting or drawing, the stick figures were the easiest. Well, if you can do this with aluminum foil, then you just need to know that all the steps after that are just going to be fun little additions to what is already now a beautiful little stick figure. But Bob Ross isn't a stick figure. We want to do him more justice with all the joy and the smiles that he brought to all of us. So what we're going to do is we're going to start turning the stick figure into Bob Ross. Starting with this happy little jeans there. I'm going to do the same pinching technique and the same tearing technique, but without tearing all the way. We don't want to do more damage than we have to, just like with a doctor. He only hurts when he has to. Rolling this over into his belt and placing it over the legs. I'm going to wrap this around and do the same thing with the legs, the pant legs. Now, I'm going to stop right about here. I'm going to save this for his shoes because as we know, pants and shoes, those are the 2 most important things to have in any public setting. Before I get to there, I want to finish the pant legs. Now for the shoes, this is going to be simple. We don't have to make this any more complicated than we have to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the pinching technique right around the ankles. That's nice. Make sure that we know where the pants end and his foot begins. And this gives us a lot of joy because now we're starting to see this human figure take shape. You can feel the accomplishment in that. knowing that you're getting better at this the more and more that you practice. I'm adjusting the pant leg a little bit so that we can see exactly how it's supposed to look. We can, of course, just go back and make little changes as we go. Make sure that even though it doesn't look perfect, it's going to be. We just need to keep working hard at it. Now for the shoes, I'm going to do the same molding technique, but instead of in a long way, I'm going to scrunch it down to be just as small as his feet need to be. So folding it over, just like this, and pressing it in, just like I did with pinching, but using the molding technique. I am just opening and closing my fingers around his feet until I'm brought to the place where this looks like a shoe. Now I'm doing this from muscle memory, but you keep trying at it, you keep working at it. You don't have to be perfect, but as long as it looks right, then it is right. That's the whole goal, is to make sure that this is a blessing to you. And once it is a blessing to you, then others can join in with the smiles as well. Same thing with the other leg. Alright, now Bob Ross, he looks a little stiff on the lower side, so we're going to bend his knee a little bit, make any adjustments that happen to the pant lining along the way so that it looks a little bit more casual. And there, now we have Bob Ross, his paint, and his pants, and his shoes. Now for his shirt and his arms. Before we put on the shirt, let's make sure that this is all going to come together in one piece and make him two happy little arms. Gotta have friends. Two arms here together, but they're not quite looking the way that they want to. So we're going to help them in that journey. Wrapping around just like we did with the pants. Spiral motion and molding so that it looks like a human arm. Oh, listen to the children outside playing. That's such a wonderful thing. You may notice that working on these things, slow or fast, it can be at your own pace, but has quite a therapeutic effect. As we hear the sound of the children outside, and as we're enjoying this time working on the foil sculptures, we are going to continue to make this bending down at the shoulder line so that it looks like a human person, getting into more intricate details, like with his hands and with his fingers. Now, fortunately, we don't have to get that complicated yet. We can just make a little bit of a thumb, bend out and pinch this little detail here, as well as to, instead of fingers, make just a little bit of a claw. And that way that claw will be holding his paint palette when we get to that part. And the same thing for his paint brush. We don't have to make the fingers all 5, but we do want to make 1 or 2 so that they will be able to look the way that we want them to. That looks very nice. Now these arms look a little long, but we can make little adjustments as we go along the way. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put his shirt around him, and then that way we can finish off with the head, the paint canvas, and the other accessories that he's going to have in order to look exactly like we want him to, like Bob Ross. That seems just enough for that. And if you don't tear off enough pieces, don't worry, you can continue to do more and more tearing, or even make more use of the little pieces that you take off along the way. If you get too much, then don't worry about it. You can just make the adjustments as you go along. But also remember that as you're sculpting these things, the only mistakes that you make are the ones that are left uncorrected. So just keep working at it, and you will find that this will be a very therapeutic, a very enjoyable experience. Seems like a lot of people are traveling through this office today. Make a little room for shirt to meet around his arms and waist. I'm going to tear off little sections for his sleeves. And the rest will be for his shirt collar. Molding this around his torso a little bit. I'm going to make a small little division. And then bring it out at a V shape. Rolling this in until it looks just right. That looks nice. As we know, Bob Ross rolled up his sleeves, his long sleeve shirt, all the way to his elbow, so that's all what we're going to do. Also working in a few details with bending. I'm just making little adjustments here and there. You guys can follow along. Work on your own sculptures, because none of the two are going to look alike. That's what makes them unique. It sure looks like it used a little bit more depth, so I'm going to add another layer. As you can see, I'm adding a little bit of a pinch on the edge of his collar there, so that when it's moving its way down, it's going to look more like a polo shirt, like we want it to. The goal is Bob Ross, so as long as the end result is what it looks like, then we've accomplished our mission. Now for the head. Now the human head is obviously going to be a very beautiful, very unique, a very intricate piece that's going to be recognized by many. But when it comes to this sculpture, there's only going to be so much that we can see. So whether or not you can do the nose, or the beard, or the afro, all you need to do is make sure that it looks like Bob Ross to you. So what I'm going to do is, with my experience, work on the facial details, but know that you don't have to go there yet if you're not ready. But when you're doing the hair, make sure that you tear it off in sections and mold it around. You'll see me do that with my fingers and with the tearing when we get there. First, attaching the head to the neck. Rolling down to the beard. Rolling over another layer. Working on the nose. This can be a flat surface if you'd like. Using my fingers to indent 2 eyes. I'm going to now show you how to do the afro. It looks like a little sunflower. I'm going to pinch down, make these smaller. Using my thumbs, press this in, and roll these back. So that it looks like a circle, like Bob Ross's circular afro hair. Little adjustments here and there until it looks exactly right. I'm going to get him to face me so that I can get a closer look at him. Now, in his posture, in his famous pose in which the picture we're basing this off of, he has his painting palette, his paintbrush, and a canvas. Of his palette, his brush, his canvas, and a look. I'm going to make just a nice little string. This will be to wrap around his wrist. You don't have to make it too detailed, as long as it looks right. And then pinch around so that it looks like an actual painting palette. Now for the paintbrush, just make a nice little stick with a happy little horsehair braid at the end. Now when he was holding it, his wrist was facing the other way, so we're going to do that. We're just going to move his wrist around. Wrap his finger, his claw on this end. Pinch the thumb. So now it looks like he's painting. So far, so good. But we're not done yet. Tear off another piece for the stand. Two little sticks. Happy little sticks. Stand set here. Now with the canvas on. And then 2 more. I'm going to attach 2 more sticks so that it looks like an easel. Just wrap it around here. Now for the board. The last piece and touch for our little sculpture here. It's going to be the canvas. And the canvas is most important because, like the whole sculpture, it's just going to be a flat surface made into something that could be beautiful once put into the right hands. The right hands are always the most capable and the most well-trained, but most importantly, the willing hands. We're going to bend a little square just like we did in the beginning. It's more like a rectangle, actually. Leave this room at top. I'm gonna wrap this around. Bend it over. And smooth it out. But we're gonna be very gentle with it, just like petting a little hamster. We don't want to upset the little guy, but we do want to make sure that he's comfortable. We want to make sure that he's loved. So we show our little affection by just gentle little prods along the way, just petting him right between the shoulders and the head. Pinching along the way. And now, we have our Bob Ross. Now, for those of you who are following along, I appreciate your guys' patience, being able to stick with it through this sculpture video. For those of you who enjoyed doing this and found some joy in foil sculpting, know that just like with Bob Ross, it is a pleasure and a blessing to be able to share this with all of you. If you ever have any requests, please leave them below. Thank you for your time, and God bless you.